Hey, what's up, guys? Christian Brindle here, and I am back with another episode of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast, the number one podcast in the world for growing your insurance business to seven figures or above. I'm joined with an awesome, amazing guest, somebody that has been on my list of people I wanted to sit down and have a conversation with and interview for some time. We were able to get our schedules to align and make the time for it. I'm super excited about this. I have Mr. Brian Hess with Advisors Excel. Brian, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Christian, thanks so much for having me on. Super excited to get to spend some time, not only talking with you, which we don't get to do super often, but it's always enjoyable when we do, and excited to be on your podcast.
I'm super excited to have you. I mean, you're somebody that I had the first chance to get to talk to, I think, on the phone several years ago, and I remember getting off that phone call and being like, this dude knows his stuff. This dude is like, and I didn't even realize at the time everything you had done in the space and all of the things you've done in the industry. Take us back to the introduction for you, right? Like, how did Brian get into the insurance business? Like, what was
Yeah.
the introduction? How did it all start for you?
Yeah. So we got to go back about a decade now, probably right at a decade. I got to work for the Attorney General's office in Kansas, where I live, as I interned for them, and then actually got hired from them right out of college and worked in the Consumer Protection Division. And as I was going through that, cool job, got to do some good things. But I had a buddy of mine that got in the insurance space, and he goes, "Man, this is awesome. You can make a lot more money." Didn't make a ton of money at my current spot. Really good, good benefits. It was a government job kind of
Hmm.
thing. And I said, you know what? I want to try something different. And so I told myself, he goes, "You got to get licensed, right? Life and health license." And I said, okay, if I'm going to quit my job, I'm going to go take the test next week. Had not studied everything. I'll take the test next week. If I pass it, I'll quit my job. If I don't pass it, then I'll keep doing this. And so went in, failed it the first time by like one, two questions, and I was like, all right, I think I'm supposed to do it anyway. So went back the next week, passed it. Again, not a big study person, didn't really study. They had an app that I could download and passed the test. And the next day, I went and told my boss, I said, "Hey, I'm going to go sell insurance." And she goes, "How are you going to do that?" And I said, "I don't know." But got in touch with a couple guys. One of them sold Medicare, and he said, "Come in, we'll do a training for you." Had maybe 45 minutes of a Medicare 101, and he said, "I just got these new lead cards for you. They're people who are turning 65 or want to change their Medicare, and everybody's seen the pink lead cards."
Hmm.
Slapped them on my desk, told me to call them, set appointments to go see people. And that was my start in the business. I found out like 3 years later, those new leads were like 4 years old because none of those people were turning
Yeah.
65. They'd all been on Medicare. So got in the space underwriting med subs and then just expanded from there. So yeah.
Love it. Love it. I remember being new in the business as myself, and a lot of people know famously now that I got in the business. My dad was in the business. I'm second
Mm-hmm.
generation, and that was the first lead I ever worked was old pink lead cards, and I didn't know they were 7 years old or whatever they were at the time, like,
Yeah.
and and so it was that and cold calling is what I was taught. He taught me to do at the beginning, and I
Mm-hmm.
look back at it and I'm like, man, I'm like, that is rough. You know what I mean?
What
Like,
were we doing?
yeah. So
Yeah.
you start off working, selling Medicare,
Mm-hmm.
you're running down old direct mail leads and those kind of things. What does that pathway look like as you start to grow, right? Like, because you evolved, in your career and those kind of things. What happened next? Like, what does the first year or two look like selling?
Yeah, so did that, sold full time for a year, got married that same year to my wife Emily, and which was an awesome thing to have happen in between that, getting kicked off on that side. And one of the things that a couple of the guys I was working with, we realized pretty early on is that we were pretty good at actually talking through with other agents and like training and getting them to different products. If you go back 2014, 2013, 2014, 2015, Facebook groups were not a thing, right? The environment that we have now for sharing communication. There was insurance forums, and only people who have been around for a long time will know what that is online. But there
Hmm.
was no sharing of information. So even like getting even from the FMO standpoint, getting new contracts was a pretty rare thing because we hadn't hit that space in really like 2018, I'd say, when every single person with an insurance charter, and their mom started putting out new carriers. So we had the opportunity to start working with a company called Bankers Fidelity.
Mm-hmm.
And we took that and did really good in the state. I got to work with a couple other guys, and they expanded that opportunity, opened an office in Kansas City, and asked me to come in and help, instead of being on the sales side, to actually work as a recruiter for agents. So I switched over, kept my licenses and sold a little bit as we were going, but my full-time job then transitioned over after about a year and a half to recruiting agents and doing the brokerage thing.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Now you're working with Advisors Excel, right? Which is a
Yep.
behemoth in the financial services industry, the annuity space. And if I remember correctly, you're running their Medicare division, isn't that right?
Yeah. So fast forward from that was 2015. Fast forward to 2019. I had known a guy named Todd Morsey. You may know that name. He used to be at Premier Senior Marketing, led their sales team, I think is what he was doing over there. He had come down in 2019 and started the Medicare division here for Advisors Excel. We lived in Kansas City at the time, wanted to move back to where my wife and I's families were, and saw they had a job position open, and I reached out to him. Todd and I had known each other for several years, and he said, yeah, dude, this would be awesome. I'm looking for somebody to come in that is experienced in Medicare and can help kind of grow and build this division. And so for AE is a, just a juggernaut in the insurance space. We do a ton of annuity premium. We've got our wealth side, so assets under management, and our life side is pretty big as well. And so Medicare was this new piece, but it really fit the puzzle of, when you look at a holistic advisor, what are they covering? What are they doing for their clients? They're managing their money, right? They're providing safe retirements. They're covering life insurance, long-term care. But there's that big piece there of Medicare and health insurance and healthcare that wasn't being addressed. And so AE knew there was a big spot there to add that. They brought in, people like Todd and some other people on our team, and then myself. And so Todd's the president of the division. I get to serve as the vice president, and I've been doing that since 2019, of working with the AE advisors. For a lot of them, they're brand new to Medicare, and so teaching them Medicare, how to sell it, how to work with their clients, and then obviously bring in new Medicare clients and convert those to the financial sales side, which is extremely lucrative for them, because the CPA on a Medicare client is a lot less than your average financial advising client.
Yeah.
And then for the other about 40% that already did Medicare, it's just consolidating those contracts over to AE, where they get a lot more value here at Advisors Excel than they may be from their current FMO. And as a whole, bringing it all under one house provides a tremendous amount of value for them.
Yeah. So, I imagine you are working with a lot of guys that are, full-time financial planners. Again, like you said, learning how to cross-sell Medicare and learning how to do Medicare as well. What do you feel like is the key for somebody to do well selling Medicare? Because I feel like anytime somebody tries to come in and add another product line, sometimes it can fall through the cracks pretty easily, right? If like the attention isn't placed on it. What do you feel like is the success point, like the real key, I guess, for a financial planner to start offering Medicare and do well with it?
The number one thing I'd say is first, they have to understand why, right? You've got to have a why behind what you're doing. If they don't understand where that fits in with financial planning as a whole, if they don't understand how it impacts their clients, they don't understand that why piece, even to this other side, which is, it's not my favorite thing to bring up, but I do bring it up because it's relevant to them. It's kind of, I don't like the kind of fear-based thing, but hey, if you're not doing it, the next guy down the street or girl down the street, they are, right? And Medicare is such a door opener. I tell the advisor we work with all the time, is they're like trying to figure out, hey, I want to add this. Medicare, as we know from a revenue standpoint, it takes years to build, right? You don't become the 6-figure and then the 7-figure guy like you are overnight, just because I work really hard those first 2 years. That is years and years of work. And so when they're looking at that to other financial products, right, there's that, well, that's not much money. And it's not a ton of money starting out. That's not the goal of it. It is, what is it doing long term, and how is it facilitating a better relationship with your clients? How is it building more trust, opening the door to bring more people in? That really is the opportunity there. So if they understand the why, the next thing is making it right a process that they can follow. So one of the core values that AE has, we have four, and one of them is surround yourself with successful people.
Mm.
So at any point, if you're an advisor at AE, there is a good chance that we're going to ask you in some venue of another, whether it's on a stage at one of our large events like World Series of Sales, where we have 500-600 advisors coming in, or one of our smaller events might be 30 people that say, hey, I don't want Brian to necessarily be the one standing on stage and telling them how to do it. I want one of these advisors to do it, right? Advisors and agents learn a lot better from their peers than they do from their FMOs. That's just the reality of it. And so having that other person stand up and say, you guys need to do that, and here's why. And then Brian and his team are going to show you, here's how I did it. And so then we'll map out, if we have a good advisor, and we've got a lot of great advisors, this is their process of how they've incorporated Medicare. We want to take that process, document it, and then just replicate it with other offices.
This video is brought to you by the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Summit. Guys, have you ever wanted to get around other professionals and the best of the best in the Medicare space if you're a Medicare agent? There's something to be said about networking and learning what other people are doing around the country, and they might just have some ideas that you may never have thought of before. It's also something to be said about learning from the best of the best. The most successful people in the insurance space collaborate, talk with others, and they have a mentality that we all are in this together and we share ideas and grow together. The 7-Figure Medicare Agent Summit is the premier event for Medicare agents. It is highly affordable. It has a great reputation of being some of the best content you're going to find at any event. There's so many events out there that are nothing but pitch fests, or half of the speakers are employees for the agency that host the event, and there's not really any real agency builders, or very few that actually take the stage and speak. At the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Summit, you get nothing but the best of the best talent from all over the industry. It's not based on hierarchy. It's not based on anything like that. We all are coming together as Medicare agents to grow and learn and get better. You can get information on who the speakers are for this year's event and ticket prices down in the link of this description. We would love to see you at the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Summit. Got it. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think it's very practical, in terms of a blueprint that they can follow, because Medicare is a complicated product line, right? So it takes a long time to kind of learn it. I feel like the hardest thing, I think, for most new agents is just understanding the product. Once you understand it, it's a pretty easy sell. And yeah, I think, that makes a tremendous amount of sense, because I think financial planners focused on the bottom line, the main thing. And I think them incorporating into what they're doing makes a ton of sense. And I think you guys are doing a great job with that. A question I had for you that I was kind of curious on your take on it is these new CMS proposed changes, right? I mean, we're learning more and more all the time in terms of what might happen when we'll kind of hear something. There was some kind of information that came out from the CapCon conference that just happened in DC. What is your take on those proposed changes? What do they mean? What do you think is most likely to happen? I know nobody knows for sure yet, but what do you think about all of it?
Yeah. As far as and this is what I've heard and what I've kind of observed and talked with carriers about, I think there will be some changes. I don't think it is going to be the proposed change of going down to $642 as that kind of cap on the MA side. I think there's going to be some changes, and I think what it is done, especially thanks to so many agents being involved in organizations outside of just their agency and selling, and being willing to go to events like CapCon, is that it's opened the door for a lot more conversations and made the decision makers, hopefully a CMS, aware of how many independent agents out there that do have a voice that are doing so many good things to help seniors with their healthcare costs. So I think there's going to be some changes. I don't know what they are. As a whole for the industry, it doesn't, I'll be honest, it doesn't overly concern me. And I know I'm in the FMO seat here, right? So looking at, well, how much money is coming in and how's that going to change things? For a lot of the advisors that we work with, Medicare is a key part of their business. but it's a key part of their business that is a service and value add to their clients, right?
Mm,
They're
yeah.
managing, they're the majority of them are securities licensed. They're managing assets. They're selling a ton of annuities. They're selling life insurance. Medicare is another way to open the door for them, to get people in. To ultimately, yeah, if we sell that Medicare policy, that's great. But ultimately, right, that's not what we're after. They're not after a Medicare policy and $600 and whatever it is. They're after gathering assets and helping people with retirement. And so from that standpoint, yes, that could affect some revenue for our Medicare agencies, but ultimately, if that does go through, let's say it went through and the 642 thing happened, it's going to create tenfold at least more opportunities, not only from the FMO side for FMOs that are not dependent on that money, but also for all the advisors. So from a, again, holistic standpoint, we're offering these 4 different lines. Yeah, it might hurt this one, but it's going to open it up a ton more opportunities, because if I can say, hey, I can run Medicare 101s, I don't care if I sell a Medicare policy or not. My job is to run these Medicare 101s, educate people on Medicare, talk through how Medicare works, and then I'm going to introduce them to, we're going to do an event on Social Security, we're going to do one on taxes, we're going to do one on inflation, right? Then I'm going to gather the assets. I'm just fine if I don't write a ton of Medicare business if I'm gathering all those assets. And
Yeah.
we've got groups that are selling Medicare, and they might sell 50, 60 Medicare policies a year, which anybody's out there thinking, hey, if you're new, that's great. If you've been doing this for years, you're like 50, 60 Medicare policies isn't paying the bills, but they're capturing 12 to $15 million a year in new assets.
Yeah.
Right. So the Medicare side is just at that point, it's just another lead funnel. It's the same thing if we're doing Social Security, whether you're an RSSA or not. If you can talk about Social Security and what people need to know about it, right? You're going to bring people in through that. I don't need to charge anybody for that. I want to get them in so that I can talk to them about full financial planning, talk to them about taxes, and then gather assets and help them in that way.
Yeah, I think it makes a ton of sense because it is a different game, like it's a different game from the Medicare specialized agent, right?
Yep.
That commission is paying the bills and keeping the lights on. But for the financial planner, it's to get the foot in the door, as you mentioned, very, I think accurately, it's another funnel. It's another lead
Yep.
funnel. Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. And it's just that looking at it from that kind of different lens and that different perspective.
I think too, it's going to, if it goes through in partial or full, as it's proposed, it's going to force a lot of Medicare FMOs to reevaluate what their actual value proposition is, what they're actually doing and offering for agents, and it's going to force them to step their game up. Because
Yeah.
if I can't pay you more, right, which is it's a big, and I get it, right? If you're running a business, how can I make more money? A lot of people make decisions with their FMO based on who's going to pay me more, whether it's commission, it's override, it's marketing dollars. If you can't fulfill that requirement, then what are you doing for me? And what's the other value then that I can add? So I think it's going to spur a lot of that, where they've got to create more opportunity of, hey, we do more things than just pay you a little bit more than the next guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. I think it makes a lot of sense. Any thoughts on this FCC, not proposal, but rule change that's going to kick in January of next year about lead generation, one-to-one consent? Obviously, it's going to change a lot of agents in terms of how they can, their ability of what kind of leads they can purchase, what leads they can work. Any thoughts
Mm-hmm.
on that?
And to be honest, don't know a ton about it. Have not done a lot looking into that. We
Okay.
don't, as a whole, very few of our groups actually purchase leads. They're everything that we're doing and looking at Advisors Excel. Again, another one of our core values is this business is all about prospecting, and prospecting must evolve, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just a universal truth for insurance, Medicare, marketing, sales, anything. And so with that, we're looking at it from a lens of not just because of the FCC rule, but from a lens of, if I am dependent on buying leads, that's going to be right. I'm always just going there as opposed to, am I generating the interest myself, right? Are we doing that we do that through radio, through podcasts, through YouTube, through TV, through educational events, seminars, webinars, a ton of client appreciation events, which is a great way a ton of our advisors bring in new business is by taking care of their current clients, right? We have a ton of people say, well, I want more referrals, right? If you're a Medicare agent and you've never said, I want more referrals, you're lying, right? I want
Yep.
more referrals. Well, the way that you get more referrals is by taking really, really good care of the clients that you have. And
Yes.
so we have several Medicare first offices that do client appreciation events. And a lot of people look at them like, that's crazy. How I can't spend, right? I might be spending all the money I have first year on to number one, obtain that client. And then number two, I'm putting on an event too. Yeah, you want the referrals. How do you think those happen? Right? That happens from you taking really good care of those clients in and out
Yeah.
of an appreciation event, but also through the service you offer. So that's one area where, I mean, we really don't do a lot of lead purchasing. It's
Yeah.
all individual generation from each office. What are they doing locally? How are they having an impact in that? We have a lot of advisors that have written their own books. We have a book writing program that will help walk through that. So that's another one of those things where it's like, I want to be out in a bunch of different ways, not dependent on one thing, like purchasing leads.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think it creates a business model to where you're not reliant on things you can't control.
Yep.
Everything that you're doing is all based off of the things that you can physically control yourself. And I think it's a great business model
Yeah.
for agents for sure. Um, Talk a little bit about if you had to go back and give Brian, when he just first got his license,
Hmm.
um, some advice. What advice would you give yourself starting off, knowing everything you
Mm,
know today?
man. Advice that I would give. Find, and this is tough because I don't know what I would say, find a good mentor or agency to work for, right? And that's a very tough thing because there's a lot of those out there, and some of them are really good, some are really bad.
Yeah.
Having somebody that pulls you into the business, and probably the way that the reasoning behind me getting into it was purely financial driven at the time. That was probably not the best, looking back, probably not the best way to make that decision, right? Oh, more money, probably not the good thing, the right thing to be chasing all throughout, right, your career.
Yeah.
Um, and then what I ended up with was a stack of 3-year-old leads, right, and a phone and a computer, and said, "Go figure it out." I mean, my very first appointment that a lady set with me, I drove about 2.5 hours. I get to this house, and that's a whole nother story that I'll tell sometime. But got to the house, went in there. She was a railroad retiree, had been on Medicare for years, and she had gotten a letter saying, hey, her plan, the Medicare supplement plan, was actually leaving, not just stopping sales, leaving. So she had a guaranteed issue right. She had a high deductible plan G. She wanted another one. And my Medicare training that I'd had, right, that 45 minutes covered plan F and plan G. And she goes, well, I want a high deductible plan G. And I remember sitting there and I was like, okay, don't mess this up, Brian. I said, I think I have one of those in my car. Let me go look. And I walked out, called the guy who had done that 45-minute training. I said, she wants a high deductible plan G. What's that? He goes, it's already on your application. You're good to go. Go in and fill out all the paperwork's the same. And he ended up texting me what the premium was going to be for her, right? And so not having that caused probably missed quite a few sales early on. Had a slow learning process. Now, the very first person I met with, which was her, I did get that sale, but then I met with like 3 more people and didn't have the knowledge base on what to do. That would be starting out, is finding that. The second thing, though, and this is almost as important as the first, but you always have to put sales first. Matt Timon.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
He's talked at some of our events. He talked last year, and he said, and this is a quote that he's quoting somebody else, so I don't know who gets full credit for this, but Matt's the one that shared it with me. He said, you only sell because you don't know how to market. You only market because you don't have a product. And that part really stuck with me, which is I was doing the selling part not well because I didn't have good training. And what I missed was the marketing piece, right? Because my lifeline to more sales was a bunch of these pink cards, right? I had
Yep.
no marketing. And so having somebody to teach you a process in selling is definitely number one. The marketing piece is the second piece. Marketing is the most important part of this business. because it does not matter how good of a salesperson you are if you don't have people to sell to, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the name of the game. And by contrast, you flip it the other way. If you have thousands of people to talk to, you're gonna become really good at sales. Maybe not the best salesperson, but you're just gonna do enough enrollments because you can just be mediocre at selling. And if you got people to talk to, you're gonna do just fine.
Yep. 100%. 100%. I want to be respectful of your time, Brian, but I have one last question I wanted to ask you. Let's say somebody's watching this and, maybe they're a financial planner, maybe they're do annuities, maybe they want to do annuities, or maybe they're just a Medicare agent that's looking for a home, and something you said resonated with them, let's say. Where can they reach you? Where's the best place to get in touch with Brian Hess and learn more about Advisors Excel?
Yeah. I'm on Facebook, Brian Hess, or they can reach out and advisorsexcel.com, go to our website. You can call in, talk to any, if you call in, you're going to get a hold of somebody and say, hey, talk with Brian. Email me, brian.hess@advisorsexcel.com. Always happy to talk to anybody and share about AE, what we're doing on the Medicare side, and just as an organization. It's a phenomenal company to be a part of, and I'm very blessed to be able to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking your valuable time and coming on and sharing all the insight and all the information that you did. I appreciate it. We'll have to do it again soon. It was fun.
That's great, Christian. Thank you so much. It was a blast getting able to be here on with you.
Everybody, if you watched all the way to the end, first off, thank you. You're the real MVP. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe. That way we know that you liked it, and we'll do more videos like it. And we'll be back next time with another episode of the podcast. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks, everybody.